Hello and welcome to this video on Warrior Within's cut content. Part 1 of this video was uploaded before this one. That video covered the cut story of Warrior Within. I'll have that linked in the description below. I was expecting to get this video out shortly after the last one, but we just kept finding new information to cover. As always, I would like to thank my friend Vernon for helping me with this video. We are both active in our Discord server where we talk about Prince of Persia. It will be linked in the pinned comment below. To start off, I want to cover the cut voice lines in Warrior Within. There's a lot to cover, but I will start off by correcting a mistake I made in my last video. This is regarding the section on the Dahaka. And this is where we find the original role for the Dahaka. The sound files show us that the prince would have had multiple encounters with the Dahaka, and instead of just running away, Prince would have fought him. I said that the voice lines belong to the Dahaka, but I may have been wrong. Thanks to Nick9 in the Discord server, he details that if we take a closer look at the file names for the voice lines, we can actually see who they belong to. The files begin with LOCSTRM, which probably means local stream, and then there's a bunch of numbers, but none of that matters until these two digits here. These two digits signify which character the line belongs to. For example, if it's 23, the voice line comes from a raider.
Retreat! Regroup!
Look at this list created by Nick9 to see what numbers belong to which character. Now the voice lines I presented in the last video belong to 26, which I assumed was the Dahaka. However, Dahaka already has his two digits, which is 2B.
No one escapes the Dahaka!
So it's actually still unknown who these digits belong to. However, Nick9 pointed out that these lines fit a character I already detailed, that being the original Sanwraith. If you remember in my last video, I detailed the original Sanwraith was an immortal servant of the Empress. When we listen back to these lines again, we can see that these voice lines fit that role.
You can try to kill me, but I'll be back.
You can try to kill me, but I'll be back. Shows us that this character was going to be immortal, and this is all detailed in the Sanwraith's character description. Now this is still obviously a theory, but it's the most likely theory since we don't have any other cut characters that match these voice lines. In the last video I also mentioned that the old man was originally going to guide the prince throughout the game. Moving on to the old man, the description details that he would have been with us throughout the game as our guide and advisor. There are actually cut voice lines that could demonstrate this.
I admire your passion, but you'll need more than that if you hope to survive madness. You're trying to do the impossible. Good luck, Prince. You're sure to need it. You cannot change your fate. No man can. I am sorry, my prince. It could end no other way. I knew nothing good would come of this. No man is stronger than fate.
These voice lines are in the game files, meaning that they were meant to play during in-game cutscenes or gameplay. These are all completely unused as the old man was relegated completely to CGI cutscenes which have their sound files built into their videos. The way these are said makes me think that perhaps he would have been like Prince was in the Sands of Time, where he would comment when you would die or pause the game.
Shall I go on? No, that's not what happened. Let me begin again.
There are multiple voice lines indicating that there was meant to be some sort of resting mechanic.
All of this fighting has worn me out. I need a moment to regain my strength. I must rest a bit. It is time to rise and continue my quest. Just a short break, so that I'm better prepared for the trials that lie ahead.
The more likely scenario here is that when Prince was low health and near a fountain, Prince would say these lines to remind the player to regain health. The first time the Prince sees the hourglass is during his conversation with Kaileena. Prince doesn't acknowledge its presence, which is strange when considering the history Prince shares with the hourglass. However, in a cut voice line we can see that originally there was going to be a cutscene where Prince talks about the hourglass.
Could it be? I never thought I'd see this hourglass again. But these are not the sands of time. It's as I hoped. I have traveled back to before the sands were created. This hourglass was just filled. What could it be counting down?
When we look at the special load map sequence, we can see that we were originally going to go straight to the throne room the first time we arrived at the access room. The fight with Shadi would occur after this. This was probably cut due to progression reasons. Going to the throne room this early would be useless since there's nothing to do here at this point in the story. Plus the towers are already aligned with the sacrificial altar, meaning most players would have missed this cutscene anyway. There are many cut voice lines where Prince would guide the player to the correct path.
I don't remember this being the correct path. I think this is the right path. No, this isn't the right way. This could be useful. This has to be good for something. This is here for a reason. This is the way I should go. This should lead me where I need to go.
In my opinion, these voice lines would have helped the game overall, since a common complaint I've heard of Warrior Within is that players would get lost, especially in the later parts of the game where more areas are available to you. There are cut voice lines showing Prince slowly losing his sanity over the course of his adventure.
I've never been so scared in my life. My trials never cease. Were it that I never open the sands. It's only a tangle of vines. This island must be getting to me.
This shouldn't surprise anyone. Being chased by the Dahaka for 7 years would break any person. They probably removed this to make Prince seem more battle-hardened. It would have been a nice addition in my opinion, as it humanizes Prince quite a lot, which is missing in the final game. Listen to this voice line.
The Dahaka, but so far away. Does it have business with another on this island?
This voice line shows us that Prince would have seen the Dahaka looking for someone else. The only other person that makes sense in this context would be the Sandwraith. We actually know where this takes place. In my playthrough of the prototype, I managed to spot it. It appears for a moment, but this shows us that it was intended to be played during the Garden Tower section. However, a problem arises here. There is no point in the story where both Prince and Sandwraith are in the Garden Tower together. When Sandwraith is in the Garden Tower, it is before Prince even arrives in the island, which is shown with the Shadi and Kaileena cutscene.
Its ship approaches. It is just as the timeline foretold. I'm sorry, Empress.
So we can only speculate here, and my guess is that the subtitle was probably just misplaced, or the less likely option is that the original route we take for Sandwraith was completely different. The entrance to the palace may have played out differently originally.
Shadi must have collapsed the stone bridge.
Here Prince says that Shadi had collapsed the stone bridge leading to the tower. What I find most interesting here is that Prince knows her name. Even after killing Shadi, Prince only refers to her as she. The only way this makes sense is if the line was intended for a later part of the game, which makes little sense since Shadi dies early on. There is an interesting voice line where an enemy signals to kill the girl.
He isn't looking! Kill the girl!
This voice line makes very little sense. This voice line makes little sense since there is no female on the island who the sand monsters would want to kill. Shadi doesn't fit here because she was the leader of the sand monsters, and Kaileena definitely doesn't fit here since the sand monsters served her. The most likely theory is that the game might have at first played with the idea of boosting the innocence of Kaileena. Originally, after you break down your first wall with the Scorpion Sword, Prince would comment on its power.
Able to break down walls. This sword is powerful indeed.
I will be covering more cut voice lines across this video when they are more relevant to other cut concepts.
That was an experience.
There is a Warrior Within asset pack that was created for the Australian press. There is a lot to cover in this asset pack as it contains a bunch of old cut contents, but here I want to cover the story synopsis in the pack. I will cover a bunch of things here later, but I want to look at this final paragraph for now. Our hero returns to Kaileena. He explains his mission to find the Empress and prevent her from creating the sands. Mahasti indicates the Empress has begun the process. If the prince has any hope of stopping her, you'll have to unlock the game mechanism, which is controlled by 3 separate towers. This line originally confused me as I thought there was a possibility that there was a mistake made by the person who created the document. But when we look at the metadata of the file, we can see that the person that created the doc was Corey May, the writer of Warrior Within. So there is obviously more to investigate here. I found out what this third tower was thanks to Konstantin at VK. He brought to my attention that the third cut tower was the guard tower we see in Prince of Persia Revelations. We know this because in the original soundtrack for Warrior Within, there is a cut ambience track called The Guard Tower Past. It is currently playing in the background of this video. In Revelations, this section of the game has us transverse a tower to unlock the gate leading to the Hourglass Room. What we received in Revelations was definitely not what was originally intended for the tower. The text clearly states that it would have been one of the towers used to unlock the Throne Room, not the Hourglass Room. If we use the same method of finding cut contents, we can see that there is another track called Escape in the Temple. This track is used and plays when we first teleport as we are hunting Shadi. The name of this track, however, does not fit the situation, and it makes me believe that the track name was repurposed from a cut area. This is obviously speculation, but I believe this track may have belonged to the Fire Temple in Revelations. This level is one of the bonus levels created for Sanwraith. In Warrior Within, Sanwraith has very few unique sections. A lot of the areas Sanwraith goes through are areas we already visit as Prince, so it would make sense that Sanwraith was originally meant to have more areas unique to him. In my last video, I mentioned how Black Damon was able to extract the subtitled file from the Bad Ending cinematic. From this, we can see that there was originally going to be a scene where Prince actually reaches Babylon. When Prince returns, he comes back to Screams and hopes he is not too late. He sees his friend Fazard, who I mentioned in my last video. Prince is surprised to see him alive as he thought everyone had died at sea. As Prince confronts Fazard, Fazard warns Prince of the beast and tells him he must run away. This raises a lot of questions. First of all, Prince says he hopes he is not too late. If this plays at the end of the game, Prince shouldn't have any more responsibilities at this point as his quest has ended. The only option here is that Prince was hoping he is not too late to save his father. Fazard being alive could be a way of showing us that the events of Sands of Time and Warrior Within didn't happen as explained in the Two Thrones. Prince never opened the sands, therefore never needed to travel to the Island of Time. Nobody on the boat would have died, so Fazard would live. The next part is the most interesting. Fazard warns us of the Beast. The only creature we know of that has been called the Beast is the Dahaka. However, Dahaka should have no business with the Prince anymore, which is shown in the scene that plays before this section. Dahaka approaches Prince but only cares to get rid of Kaileena and the Amulet of Time. So Dahaka going around Babylon doesn't make any sense. The only option here is that Fazard was referring to the figure at the end of the Good Ending, but the phrase the Beast makes it seem like this is a known figure. The figure shown at the end of the Good Ending is clearly disguised and shown as an unknown figure as he is hooded. So all we can do is speculate, and it's a good thing this part of the ending was cut. Probably around 95% of players at the time only got the bad ending, so all this extended scene would have done was confuse the player. As with any game, our main character, the Prince, went through many design changes. In one of the earliest concept arts, we can see that the team thought of making the Prince into a Persian general, the same soldiers we saw in the Sands of Time. With a lot of these cut contents, you will find that there was a heavy pirate theme, and a lot of these early concepts demonstrate that. The pirate theme is still present in the final game, but has taken a seed to the game's eventual transition towards a more gothic horror theme. We can actually see the gradual changes in Prince's design to the final design we see today. The most important cut designs are actually these textures created for Prince. These were probably unlockable costumes that had to be cut for time. Among the unlockable costumes are the prince wearing the armor he wore in the Sands of Time, what looks to be a skeletal costume, Prince wearing a grey vested costume, and a shirtless Warrior Within costume with the amulet embedded into Prince's chest. It stands out as the most gruesome costume ever seen on Prince. These unlockable costumes were probably cut due to the short development time. Let's kick off this section by looking at some weapons that didn't make it into the final game. First up is a sword with a skull on it. We are not sure who this was going to belong to. Next, there's a sketch believed to be Shadi's original weapon design, judging by its color palette. Lastly, there's a red stick that is thought to be a secret lightsaber. It was probably cut because getting a license for something like that would be pretty tough. And the most interesting cut weapon is Prince's bare fists. Yes, the director for the game originally thought of giving Prince no weapons and making him fight with his hands, inspired by Jackie Chan movies.
Jackie Chan is obviously a major inspiration. Initially, we wondered whether the prince should even have a main weapon. We wanted him to be able to fight with his hands, picking up weapons as he goes. Then we thought that we didn't want him to actually become Jackie Chan. He's the Prince of Persia, a hardened warrior who is never without his sword, and knows how to use other weapons too. We also wanted to give the player a sense of freedom.
Moving on to weapon changes, the walkthrough mentioned earlier, we can see that the light sword went through quite a big change. It was going to be a curved blade that radiates a blue color. The final game changes this color to green and changes design to resemble the eagle sword. Finally, all weapons in Warrior Within were altered slightly before release. We can see in the beta that the weapons were much more colorful. The final game makes them all dark to fit the gothic aesthetic. If you had watched the video on Warrior Within's prototype on this channel, you would know that after killing Kaileena, the game didn't automatically teleport us to the beach. The prototype has us walk through the broken eagle statue to reach the hourglass room. Only after reaching the hourglass room did the game finally teleport us to the beach. In the asset pack I mentioned earlier, there is also a full walkthrough of the game using an even earlier build than the prototype. When looking at this section in the walkthrough, the player backtracks even further, all the way to the access room. The guide then ends there and picks up at the beach. The reason we need to be teleported to the beach is that it's impossible to return there without using glitches. This door in the guard post cannot be opened, and even if we could get past this door, this huge gate also blocks our progress towards the beach. But this is probably a good thing. The game was heavily criticized for how much you have to backtrack, so if we were forced to go all the way back to the beach, the backlash would have been even worse. This voice line may have also played during the backtracking, as it's the only context where this makes sense.
It's as if the entire castle trembles with grief at the loss of its mistress. Let it weep. I will soon be away from this accursed place.
Just like Prince, the enemies we see in Warrior Within also went through some design changes. I'll be going through each enemy and detailing any changes they may have had. Warrior Within didn't have as many cut enemies as the Sands of Time did, but we do have one fully modeled and textured enemy that was cut from the final game. This is what appears to be a cut harpy. They have their bare chest out, which is censored for YouTube reasons, and they have the Empress's logo all over their body. Nothing else is known about this enemy, and I don't think we have any concept art of them either, so this is all we get. Most of the changes we see on enemies in Warrior Within is a palette change, and this can be seen on the beta raiders. Their trousers were originally black and their armor was a lot darker. In the concept art for the raiders, we also see they were going to have shoulder pads. Raiders can actually have 5 different skulls they can appear with. This 5th one was cut from the final game but exists in the demos. In one of the trailers for the game, we can actually see a raider that is wearing no helmet. Blade dancers were originally going to have a fully black palette, and this actually stayed with the blade dancers quite a while into production. We can see from the walkthrough mentioned earlier, they had this black color palette all the way into the August build. We also have some high quality renders of this black color palette. Keepers went through quite a change from their original concept art. They were originally going to sport an elegant robe and wear what's closer to a turban instead of a hood. They also used to have a shield. In one of the earliest arts we know of, we can find the original concept art for the Brute. The Brute was originally going to wear a helmet to fit his gladiator armor. The final design is also not as colorful. Spike Beasts and Scavengers also went through palette changes. In this art, Spike Beasts also had spikes on their head. In very early gameplay shared by IGN, we can see that the initial beach cutscene was quite a bit different. The entire cutscene was reworked from its camera work to the animations. I do like how Prince takes the wooden stick from the rubble, instead of just finding it on the ground. Warrior Within received a demo for the PS2 and PC. These were typically a part of those demo bundles included in magazines. Within these demos are a few cut contents I want to cover. First of all, the cutscenes in this demo are actually skippable. They were skippable in the Sands of Time, but for some reason are unskippable in both Warrior Within and the Two Thrones. The next thing to mention is the combat in this demo. As mentioned earlier, the weapons use a lighter texture and have a different animation when Prince picks up the secondary weapon. Prince picks up the secondary weapons using his hands, whereas in the final game he picks them up using his feet. Prince's health bar is slightly different. The start of the health bar curves, and the secondary weapon icon is completely missing. This means there's no way of knowing when a weapon is about to break or not. Another thing to mention about the combat is the different balancing. A lot of moves are really overpowered, and this is made more powerful by the fact that moves can also be animation cancelled a lot earlier. What I mean by this is that when you do a move, you can press block to end it early. This allows you to attack again straight away without being stuck in an animation. Another interesting thing about this demo is that it forces you to complete the combat tutorial. The first time I played this demo, I was stuck here for over 7 minutes until the demo forced me out. The ship level remains basically the same except for a few cutscene changes. The cutscene that plays when you reach the upper deck is split into two. Once you reach the upper deck, you have to walk slightly forward to play the cutscene where Shadi slays one of your crewmates. The staircase cutscene is also slightly different. Prince's voice actor here is not Robin Atkin Downes. The game first had a placeholder voice actor until they managed to hire Robin. Prince also has teeth in the demo, which is slightly cursed.
For your sake, you better hope I don't.
Live.
For your sake, you better hope I don't.
The boss battle with Shadi is the same, apart from the camera being different and Shadi's parry animation being different. After finishing the ship level, we watch the cutscene where Prince is running away from the Dahaka, but this version is slightly different, showing longer cutscenes.
Whosoever shall open the sands must die. But now an unstoppable beast chases you, and you will die. We cannot change your fate. No man can.
After the cutscene, we are transported to the prison area. As soon as we start, we can get a better look at Prince's model. We can see that he originally had a sheath for his main weapon on his back. It doesn't look complete as it just looks like the weapon is missing a section. Next, we can see the traps look slightly different. The base of these swords looks more like something from Sands of Time or the Two Thrones. We can also see that there were originally going to be water fountains which Prince can use to restore his health. They have a Brew Empress of Time logo on them. I'm not sure what the significance of that is, but I guess it's to contrast the Red Empress of Time logo found on enemies. This corridor has a lot more spike traps you can use to kill enemies with, making this section a lot easier in the demo. Once we reach the main hall, we can pick up the Scorpion Sword. We can see a cut animation where Prince throws away his primary weapon first and then picks up the Scorpion Sword.
Good. This should make things easier.
Once Once we pick up the weapon, we face the boss, but instead of it being the thrall, it's just a brute with a health bar. Once you kill this brute, the demo ends and plays a trailer for the game showcasing some early footage. I will cover what's shown here later in this video. The second demo we received was PC exclusive and was released in January 2005, a month after the final game was released, so there's very little changes to cover. We play a section from the mechanical tower and the demo plays identically to the final game until we use a portal and reach the mechanical pier in the present. Once we reach this section, a cutscene plays where the Dahaka walks through a door and does a pose. The demo ends right after this. The next section of this video will cover a bunch of small changes. There won't be any voiceover, but I will be using captions to describe the differences. These changes are still interesting but don't require a lot of explanation.
As for the traps, for a while we wanted to go back to the very first Prince of Persia and make the traps lethal. We couldn't really do it though because the gameplay has a series of traps that requires acrobatics. We had long discussions with John Christoph, and I would have loved traps that cut you in half, but we couldn't really. It would have been too frustrating for the player. So we made them more deadly, but not absolutely lethal, and we tried to create combinations of traps that are much more...
So you can kill me in your own time instead of mine? I'm sorry, Prince, but only one of us can cheat fate today.
is the guardian of time. In the last game, you reversed time and you disrupted the timeline. Apparently, that disrupted Dahaka, and now he hunts you, and the problem is he cannot be defeated, so he's going to kill you. Your only chance of survival is to go back in time, reverse them, and destroy the sands of time before they are in creation. You can also steal enemy weapons and throw them. Nice. Those of you just joining us in the background, we'll even show you a demonstration of how you can steal a weapon from the enemy and use it against them. You can also use time as a weapon by going into rapid time. You don't get a lot of it, but you get a couple quick slices off just like that. Make a leg crack. Ooh, I love that one. Oh. Ah, nice and then. Oh! Let's take this weapon and keep it. Nice. Hiya. Now we're going to hold on to his weapon. We got nobody else to fight, so we don't have to use it or throw it. But I want to go back in time, and I think we're going to need two weapons. Any weapon that you acquire in the present, you can take with you in the past to use for battle. Heading into the warp room, where you as the prince will use the doors of time to travel back in time. Like I said, to destroy the sands of time. You're going to travel back and forth between past and present, fighting in both worlds. However, it's only in the past where you can escape the Haka's wrath by destroying the sands of time. We brought our second weapon with us, and we will need it, because here comes the Haka for the toughest battle yet. Once again, Prince of Persia 2 comes out this fall.
And that concludes this video on Warrior Within's cut contents. Once again, I want to apologize for taking so long, but you can see why just by the length of this video. If you did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing to see when the next video comes out. As always, thanks for watching.